Okay, thank you everybody for participating in today's LTCT meeting. Um, and for you that don't know, ODE over the winter vacation rolled out new PowerPoint templates and so forth. And we had to participate in training and so forth. And ODE employees are now required to, to utilize that template. So our meeting PowerPoints look a little different, but then from the previous LTCT meetings, but they are consistent with other ODE LTCT presentations. So without further ado, because I know all of you are super busy and so forth, especially on a Friday. So our next slide is, or are people able to see the next slide? The next slide is about us. Yes, no. If people could give a hand, thumbs up, or someone could. Okay, people can see. Yes, thank you. Okay, good. So about us. So I am one of the very I'm an employee of the Oregon Department of Education. We work with partnership with school districts, ESDs, community partners to foster equity and excellence for every learner. We serve over 560 kids, 75,000 employees, and so forth. And we have access to high quality, well-rounded learning experience, and we work to ensure every student and graduates with a plan for their future. Who do we serve? These are some of the statistics of our students that we serve in Oregon. And then also a strong sense of equity. Education equity is equitable implementation of policy, practices, procedures, and legislation that translates into resource allocation, education rigor, and opportunities for historically and currently marginalized youth, students, families, and including civil rights protected classes. This means the restructuring and dismantling of systems and institutions that create the dichotomy of beneficiaries and of the oppressed and marginalized. And a lot of our students, unfortunately, have suffered because of some of this. So without further ado, it's about 9:03. This is our agenda for today. Q&A discussion for questions from other sites, talking about available 1921 federal funds and proposal for the MSL staffing. And for Senate Bill 1522, I have to, and I'll repeat it later on. OD is non-political. We can't recommend or stuff. We can't ask for people to lobby. I'm just pointing out certain language in Senate Bill 1522. Still undecided for 2122 and other agenda items. Nobody emailed me. And our next meeting is 9 a.m. May 13th. And some people, do you want me to send a meeting invite? Some people want me to, some people don't, and so forth. So, yep, those are the meeting agenda items for today. Next, our due dates. As I mentioned, our next meeting is May 13th. But then here are our count dates for next year that'll be due in December of 22. So if these are our 6 count dates for Title I-D child count, and these dates were selected based on the hope that counts will go up. That's why there's no counts in February or January and so forth, and later in the year. So, so these are the 6 dates that we will collect enrollment, not attendance counts, but enrollment counts for next school year for Title I-D. That'll be due in December of 2022. So, and okay, yeah, and I'm reading the chat. I thought I was on mute. Sorry. So okay, so yes. Okay, some people want meeting invites. Okay, I most definitely can. Okay, so so these are the counts for Title I-D next year. And I think I emailed out the PowerPoint presentation yesterday, so you have it, and it's there. Next, discussion, Q&A. So the one of your LTCT principals asked if they could have in our meetings, an opportunity to ask other other LTCT sites some questions and so forth. So these are just two of the questions that I received like recently and so forth. So like here, someone asked, professional development for teachers, CPS, collaborative problem solving, CPI. What do some of your LTCT sites provide? And I'm gonna be quiet. So to allow others to talk and to share what type of professional development that you offer your teachers.
I would just say at Levi Anderson, good morning. My name is Lisa Bates, Principal Levi Anderson Learning Center. We do a lot of trauma-informed care and suicide prevention intervention.
Thank you, Lisa.
And I'm Kathy Wright. I'm long-term care and treatment. I'm located on the Trillium campus in Corvallis. And I try and tag on to collaborative problem solving and CPI, which is what Trillium relies heavily on for their skills trainers, just because I want my staff to kind of speak the same language as Trillium staff.
Thank you, Kathy.
Hello, CJ Toole here from Crossroads LTCT in the Dalles, North Wasco County School District. We also do CPS and CPI, along with some suicide prevention training and then ongoing PLC opportunities throughout the year through the school.
Thank you, CJ. And people are posting in chat, MESD, Albertina Kerr, which is Win Watts, Courageous Conversations About Race, Krista Slaughter from Forest Grove for Oak Grove, Assist, Training for All Staff, CPS, Plan B, Organizer Training, Explicit Instruction, DBT, Lagging Skills. Bethany Bauer, same for us, our therapeutic staff use CPS, so that's what we train in. And Bethany is from Northwest Regional ESD for LifeWorks. And Susan Peck, CPI CPS at sites in Southern Oregon at Family Solutions. Thank you, Susan, from Southern Oregon ESD. Candace Cardiff from Child Center in Springfield. We also add diversity and equity training, trauma-informed care, suicide, etc. Thank you, everybody. Any other suggestions or thoughts for others, for your peers? Sarah Osman from High Desert ESD, Sagebrush, CPI, CPS, are currently working on an equity book study. Great, these are all great suggestions.
Yeah, but I can't find the thing that you're saying. But I can also ask after.
Ian Baines from Jasper Mountain Schools, working with traumatized primary and a few secondary students. We have CPI training by all staff members, and have introduced the MTSS role. And all the students here have to certainly experience the second tier of MTSS, providing them the support to get through the program so that we can move them back into their regular zone school.
Or print it out and make it, because you're going to have all sorts of people.
Thank you, Ian. And you're Jasper Mountain, but specifically for Safe Center, correct?
Right now. But that's cute. The doctor, and then just tell Dr. C you did it for, you printed hers out.
If you're like people, if you're not speaking, could you mute yourself, please? Sorry.
So just to answer your question, Mr. Ko, yes, I'm with Jasper Mountain and Safe Center, the two sites under the Jasper Mountain Schools.
And Ian, just call me Sam. Everyone, just call me Sam. I'm very informal, and this is for us and so forth. Yeah. Any other question? Any other suggestions? Otherwise, we're going to go to the second question one of your peers asked. And a question one of your peers asked was 10-day drop rule. Do some of your LTCT sites utilize the 10-day drop rule as one of the exiting criteria from your program? And so forth. And then I gave that person my take, but then what are your takes? Do you, when you like if a kid hasn't attended for 10 days, do you automatically drop them? Do you not? Like what's your take?
Hey, Sam, this is Krista Slaughter from Forest Grove School District. On our end, usually we will over time implement a drop. Usually I don't align with the 10-day in consideration of the context of the student, the family, and the supports and what's really going on, especially right now with absences and just the challenges with families. We just consider context. I have dropped one student, but it wasn't 10-day. It was more kind of 30 days following an IEP meeting. Definitely, I always look at it. I don't want to drop a kid until the team has come together to gather all the relevant information.
Thank you. Oh, and Maddie from IMESD for Lifeways. Oh, but then Maddie, you guys switch partners, right? I don't know who your new partner. I forget who your new partner was. K5 program, they receive training in conscious discipline and ongoing PD with their mental health provider for strategy language, suicide prevention, biweekly instruction, professional development based on diagnostic data and instructional needs. Thank you, Maddie. Thank you, Krista, for your input. Others?
I'd like to add about the 10-day drop in Southern Oregon. We don't really look to that 10-day drop rule in that most of the kids that come to either day treatment or residential don't have good school attendance, have issues with being in class. That's part of why they're there, right, in day treatment or residential. And typically students will choose to attend only part of the day. It's very rare that a student wouldn't want to attend school at all for 10 whole days. But we'd work with the site way before the 10-day to see what we can do better or differently on behalf of the student, either on the therapeutic side or the educational side. So we wouldn't choose to drop. It just means we need to do more, better, different on behalf of the student.
Thank you, Suzanne. Others?
Sam, Max, Portland Art School, we have, if we have a kiddo who can't come to school for mental health reasons, if they're missed 5 days or more, we do a prior written notice just to make sure they understand and the families understand we're here and ready. We also work, like other folks have said, with our treatment partners to make sure we're providing as much support as we can academically if they can do work, but maybe not physically be in school. And we, sometimes we'll work out plans for them to get one-on-one tutoring outside of the school hours. But we do, if the student discharges, I see the question here, when do we drop exited students? We do drop them if they are not engaged or enrolled anymore. But our hope is that if they do get to that 10 days and they haven't been coming to school, we've done a lot of work up until that 10th day to try to support the student as well.
Thank you, Max. And I think one of the words that you use that is critical is engage. Like, if the parents are communicating what's going on and so forth. Yes, I think that's, and then I'll talk about what I offered that person later after, and Candace Carter from Child Center saying we lightened up on the strictness of that policy due to COVID quarantine. If kids are not coming due to mental health, then we become more intensive in getting the kids to attend through therapy. And Crossroads from CJ. At Crossroads, we suspended the 10-day rule during the distance learning and just make extra efforts to work with parents, guardians on attending. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And one of the things that when I talk with the person is sometimes it's a struggle to get the kids even in, to get the paperwork. So try to work with the families because you don't want to exit a kid just because of 10 days absence, and then later on you have to do everything again and so forth. And a lot of times it's not the elementary kids' fault, that they're unable to come to school and so forth, it's beyond, it's just the circumstance that they're in. Now, in this particular case, unfortunately, the mother and the child left the area to go to the coast for an extended vacation. And the school found out from the boyfriend that was residing there and about that, because the mother had turned off her cell phone, wasn't responding to emails and so forth. And they had done a home visit, and the boyfriend said, oh, they're off on the coast for an extended vacation, I guess living with family. So yeah, so like Max said, lack of engagement, and that's reality. Some of our families are like that, and then obviously school and treatment is not valued for that family. Yeah. So yeah. So
This is Ryan.
hey Ryan.
Education Associates. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Ryan Chandler, I think you're not on mute. Okay,
Sorry.
thanks, Ryan. Okay, so yeah, so thank you everybody for your thoughts and questions. Does anyone have any other questions that they'd like to ask other LTCT colleagues? None? Okay, next item on the agenda. Our fiscal people, we close out our books for 1921. And generally when we have a little left over, we just spend it in the next biennial, but then this time it's a good amount. So what I don't want to do is to distribute the funds to everybody, because there's some people that will not use it, and that's how we got this funds, because some people didn't use all of it. So that's why, I'm asking, if you're gonna, and they have to be used by September 30th, so you most likely will have to claim IDA and Title 1D in the June 30th invoice, and so forth. And then we would try to get this out quickly. But if you want to have, and it'll be distributed by count for those that want it, if you want a portion of the 231 IDA, a portion of the 392 Title 1D and so forth, let me know. And then I'm just gonna say, if for Title 1D, we normally get about $900,000. So when we got back like 460, that's roughly 50% of the Title 1D funds that was not spent, and IDA is roughly around like that percentage too. So that's the thing. Hopefully you will use the federal IDA and Title 1D for supplemental purposes, not to supplant, supplemental purposes such as, summer school or tutoring or whatnot. It's not to supplant. So if you want a portion of this, please email me, by Monday. That way I can start working on it, calculating it. Okay. Any questions about that? No? Okay. Proposal for February and April, May timelines. I've had multiple conversations with concerned LTCT principals about the allocations for 22-23 because of the ADM is low and so forth. And then I talked with a few people and it came up with a proposal. Now these are what some of them for those, and then this part is going to be a little bit more technical and it's going to be longer, because I do know we have some new people on the call and that are not as familiar of the minimum staffing. So that's why I'm going to take a little bit more time. So every year in around January, February. Okay, yeah. I asked for data such as like your count, and I asked for your teacher salary, your EA salary or pro salary. That's on the highest scale without differentials or longevity bonuses, etc. And the salary must include associated costs. And a lot of people ask, oh, our collective bargaining hasn't completed. What do we do? Just add like 2% or whatever, 3% on what you think it'll be, to your cost for the next year. The number of requested classrooms for 22-23, and the total number of slots that the program can accommodate. So this is the email that I sent out last year. Asking for the data and so forth. And here's an example that I gave. And the OER for our LTCT programming is right here. Funding is right here. Minimum staffing. 1 teacher, 2 EAs for up to 15 kids. 1 teacher, 3 EAs for 15 to 20. And when there's more than 20, you get a second classroom. But then here we have this. Staffing levels may vary from this guideline for safety, student characteristics, or treatment needs, and still meet the MSO standard as determined by the department. At the department's discretion, we add 15%, for your indirect and other administrative costs. So this is, I intentionally didn't send it out yesterday because I didn't want people alarmed, and so forth. For instance, like here, like Paddock, and I'm just saying Paddock because they're top, they're the first one. So they have about 14 ADM. So according to the minimum staffing, they should only get 1 classroom. But we provide 2 classrooms at Paddock because they have a middle school and a high school program. So we give them 2 and so forth. So, but then here for some of your sites, some of the sites, the counts are really low. So there might be some recalibration, for this coming school year. So I'm probably going to ask for, your count in January or February, the number of slots again for next school year, and your teachers, and then what the number of classrooms that you want for 22-23 and so forth. Yeah, because there needs to be some, and I'm not picking on anybody or whatnot, but here's the data that all of you can see from, teacher on the EA rate and so forth. And I know some of you are concerned, and then as I am too. So, and talking to some of your peers, we said, what if normally in February we collect the MSO data, and then normally in March we send out the allocations for 22-23, and then that's it. But some people have said, oh, can we delay it? Because they feel once COVID has passed, once things get back to normal, the counts will go up, and so forth. So, so what I'm like, and this is a discussion because we can do that, but I need to also be aware and cognizant of the fact that a lot of your school districts and ESDs are right now in the budgeting process, are right now in the process of determining the number of teachers, EAs, the transfer period, and so forth. So this is an opportunity for everybody to provide their input. So the proposed is February, then communicate tentative allocation in early March. Then late April, I'll collect more enrollment data from you. And then in early May, communicate the final allocation in 22-23, and then amendments will come out in the summer. So this is a proposed timeline. And yep. And I'm going to mute myself, and this is an opportunity for everyone to provide feedback and so forth.
And this is Candace from the Child Center. I think this makes sense because we're also all dealing with, the SB 710 and having to retool what program we use for that in the training, and figuring out how we're going to accommodate more kids in our program with that in place. I'm not worried so much about COVID as I am about the effect of that on the number of kids and the type of kids we can bring in.
Thank you, Candice. How about business people? How does that impact your cycle?
Hey, Sam. So just to clarify, it's Krista from Forest Grove School District. So are you saying that we would not find out about allocations and number of classrooms until the summer?
The proposal is I collect the data and then in early March, I will give you a tentative number of your amount and the
Okay.
number of classrooms in early March. And then in April, I will collect more enrollment data to see if your counts did go up. And then in early May, I will communicate via email like how I always do, like your allocations for 22 for the money and the number of classrooms. And and then amendments always take a long time, and then so forth. But
Mhm.
early May is our commitment, or we're going to strive to send out the allocations for the upcoming year. That's why,
Okay.
like, yeah, it's I know it's late. That's why I'm asking for people's thoughts, opinions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit late. It's kind of crunch time because I'm already planning for next year. And then also I have a question about, just to clarify, is because we have to always be ready with 41 slots because the beds that we serve. I know there is kind of a staffing crisis more in residential placements, and that's where we've had to have some shifts and adjustments. That is something that you consider when we submit our data in February, that we do have to be ready at any time to support up to 41 students that need access because it's based on beds. Is that correct from reading the OARs?
I do utilize the slots and the ADM, for and then so forth. But if you look at the OER, it says student per classroom.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
not slots. And unfortunately, and then you bring up a good question. And then there's a disconnect. And I've said this in the past. We, like our unit ODE, we get our revenue based on slots, based on the net operating expense times the number of slots available to every kid. But we distribute the money based on the number of classrooms. And then, as all of the amount that we get by slots, for instance, like yeah, it no way justifies the number of classrooms.
Mhm.
We're always, in yeah. I'm not
Okay.
saying deficit, but
Yeah.
like there's no way. Like for instance, like Looking Glass, they have 8 slots, but we have to provide funding, for a whole classroom.
Mhm.
I'm
Okay.
just saying.
So is it that, so what would happen during the year if there is a hardship? So for example, residential home still has the beds. They closed over this spring and this winter because they don't have the staffing to accept students. Though let's just say in July and August, they all of a sudden let me know, hey, we have enough staffing and we have the staffing level in the community to take in and get students back into this home. And they're a separate special school and they have to be, then we're the location and place for service. But all this was considered off of the ADM and not our actual slots we have to serve. And then therefore those students, we have to figure that out as a district, though they should be served under LTCT. So is that something I would describe in our description when we send you the data of like, hey, this is the situation and here's the collaboration. If I get letters on here's our challenges and issues with staffing with residential programs?
Most definitely, most definitely. And I've done this with other programs too for this school year too. Um, like for instance, there was one site that we reduced classrooms, and the commitment that we gave them was we'll look at the counts like in September. If the counts do go up, then we'll allocate another classroom. But unfortunately, the counts did not go up, and so forth. So we can, like for instance, like I'm looking at your data, like Krista.
Mhm.
4 classrooms, like 16 ADM. You know, I'm not saying there will be a reduction or recalibration on the number of classrooms, but if there is, you know, we could definitely say let's revisit, you know, in September, and if the numbers come up and so if things change over the summer, you know, and so forth. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and then I'd throw in also the consideration that it's very difficult right now to find staffing and to find quality teachers that can do this work and are willing to do this work and provide quality instruction and support and mental health collaboration. So it would be a concern if waiting last minute on this consideration of even finding teachers and staffing to support an increase of students. So I just want to put in the consideration of that because it is very difficult to find quality staff and highly qualified teachers to do this work.
Yeah. And and on the spreadsheet, we have 2 areas that are kind of highlighted because those are 2 that are temporarily closed for this school year, but they have both said that they might reopen next year and then so forth. So that's why they're highlighted. So I'm hoping out hope, you know, and so forth. Yeah. And someone in chat, Karina said they submit their staffing by February 24. So earlier the better. So Karina, are you asking, you want to know the final allocation by February 24th?
I just think any estimate, I mean, this happens every year. You know, where you're waiting on, your process is a little bit slower or farther behind than school district's process sometimes. So any kind of information that we can have before that, you know, before February 24th would be really helpful. Even if it's just estimates and you're still in process.
Yep.
Sam, I have a question and agree with everything people have just said. What happens to the money if looking at these numbers, everybody is down? So let's say everybody gets cut classrooms, where does that money go?
That's a good question. One, we would draw less from the state school fund. That's one, you know, because less kids, and then the state school fund grows up, you know, that's one. And 2, then the amount per classroom will also increase because there's less classrooms, because a large portion of our LTCT funding is the general fund, and that's a set amount. So right now, let's say the general fund amount for 22-23 is 9 million. If it's divided by 80 classrooms, it's 80. But if it's divided by 70 classrooms, then that 9 million, instead of divided by 80, is now 70, and so forth. So then the per classroom amount goes up, and we don't generate enough funding to fund everybody at 100%. So so what it is we have to prorate. Like here, like if the state funding available is less than the total state funding needed, we have the ability to prorate the amount that is provided. And also what we have not done for the last couple of biennia, because it wasn't everyone said they don't want it. We can, like ODE, we can withhold 5% of the total allocation for emergency funds. But for the last 2 biennia, I have not, because I didn't want to sit on 5%, and just in case if emergencies come up, and then a lot of times it didn't. And then so what happens is, if you think about it, our LTCT budget is like roughly about 40 million. If I sat on $2 million every biennia, not sending that out, you know, then it's $2 million that's not utilized. So that's why, even though the OAR allows us to withhold 5% of our total allocation for emergency funds, or kind of like we have not been utilizing it. You know, I've been sending out pretty much 100% of the amount to the sites and so forth. And these are all very good questions. Any other thoughts or comments?
How do
I
you
have a quick-
determine how many classrooms to fund for new programs that don't currently have any students in them?
Okay, so that's a good question. For instance, like for Therapeutic Learning Center, the program that was run by Douglas ESD, if their program comes up again with their mental health provider, that program was dependent upon geographics because they had 3 classrooms because they had a classroom in Sutherland, they had a classroom in Winchester, and they had a classroom in South Umpqua. So they ran 3 different classrooms in 3 different cities within Douglas County and so forth. So it's not just always treatment, it's also depending on the geography of where the classrooms are located. And that's the same thing with the PPS Dart School and so forth. Somebody had another question or comment?
I had a quick question, but it wasn't related to this funding piece. And I don't know, is there going to be an opportunity at the end to ask different types of questions?
Yes, Corinne, at the
Okay.
end. Yeah. Like here, like the last slide, I always end our meetings with questions, and then here's this too, like, all of you are always welcome to call me or email me and so forth. And one particular LTCT site has asked to have standing meetings with me like every week. Like I think it's every week, Tuesdays at like 10 a.m. But then sometimes if there's nothing to talk about, there's not, we cancel. But one LTCT site, they requested of me for the mental health and the school district people to have like standing meetings every Tuesday. And then that's something that I'm willing to, to have with all of you, or you guys are all have my cell phone number or email address. Julie Smith has her hand up.
Thanks, Sam. Is there any conversation about the funding formula as it's put now in the statutes and the regulations? And I ask that because it's really designed around an elementary model, and I run a secondary program, and it doesn't really fit that secondary model with the 1 classroom and 2 EAs formulation, where I'm looking at having to be certified, fully certified in a content area in order to deliver credit, and trying not to move towards where everything's credit retrieval and online, because that's not the best learning modality for our students. So I just wasn't sure if there was any conversation at the state level about revisiting the formula as it's written into the statute right
now. That's a very good question, and that there's a segue with Senate Bill 1522 that I'll cover. But then if you could remind me when we talk about Senate Bill 1522. Yes, thank you, Julie. So I'm not hearing much objection. It's just so this proposal is a go, no go?
Sam, this is Karina from Portland Public. So just to reiterate again, so it's just trying to save a little bit to make any amendments in case kids come back closer towards the end of the year. Is why it would be a little bit later to try to have the most accurate count. Is that right?
Yes, because some sites have said,
yeah,
give us more time.
We were one of them. Yeah. Thank you.
You're right. No, and it's just not you, Karina, like others have called, and I'm not going to identify who called and so forth, because they saw their ADM, they saw their counts, and so forth. And I look at the counts too. I'm like, oh my gosh, and so forth. Yeah. Yeah. And, okay, so I'm going to try, and then I'm going to try to pull up a document that I've been tracking. I can't find the document, but the document that I was trying to find was I've been tracking, unfortunately, the sites that have closed ever since I took over. And when I first took over the LTCT program, we had 47, but then now we're down to like 32. You know, and then that's just, you know, and then, yeah, just within PPS, just within this year or roughly a year, they had 3 sites closed down. And Southern Oregon had 2 sites closed down, Southern Oregon ESD. So, you know, and so forth. So, yeah, it's just concerning. Yeah. So I'm not hearing much objection to this timeline. Candice Cardiff says go. Any other? Karina says go with this. Okay. Yeah. Ian looks good. Yep. And I'm trying to be as, you know, responsive as to the needs of everybody. Okay. So, okay.
So
Okay.
does it-
Oh, somebody was saying
Because
something.
it looks like it should be. Yeah, I'll just wait. I mean, I'm off. I think now I don't have to whisper. No, I put on.
Oh, somebody is not muted.
Mute me.
Okay, so next.
Because I'm really like a freak of nature. Oh, it's because you're just that amazing. Everybody just wants to.
Okay, you're still.
Erica, you're not on mute, Erica.
Okay, so everybody, this is Senate Bill 1522, and this is pretty much nicknamed the Education Omnibus Bill. So most likely it'll pass. And there are certain sections for that relate to us, and one is credits. Here. Is this too large for you to see? I think it might be. Is this okay for y'all to see?
It's good,
Okay.
Sam.
Okay, so here it's talking about for when students are in our JDEP and YSEP programs, and even LTCT and hospital, the regular community or neighborhood schools have to accept the credits earned within our programs. Because every so often there's instances where I get calls, or LTCT sites will call, and or JDEP, YSEP will say, this high school principal is not taking our credit, you know, they earned while in one of our programs. So this is one of the things that the statute is saying. Oh darn, yes, this is Amendment 5, yes. So this is on page 12, so here. And also, and then also in the Menstrual Act section, I think I misspelled it, sorry. It allows for now, because the previous law didn't allow for exceptions. Now it says here there's modifications for if when our education providers don't have control of the student bathrooms. Like for instance, like if your LTCT program is in the mental health facility, or if the education program is in a juvenile corrections or detention, you don't have control over what happens in the bathrooms. So so there are some exceptions to the provision of providing menstrual products and so forth. Yep. And also for bathrooms not located in commonly accessible areas in public school buildings or community college or public university. Okay, so I just want to give everybody a heads up on that. And now to Julie's point is here, there's the legislature has been um, their attention has been on YSEP and JDEP because their funding is grossly underfunded. And here are some language that are that they're asking for. And then the reason why I bring this up, sometimes JDEP language gets into LTCT, sometimes LTCT language gets into YSEP JDEP and so forth. So the legislature is now saying that JDEP and YSEP, the students there will receive an appropriate education that is nearly the same as practical as education that is received by students enrolled in Common High and Union High School. So Julie, yes, the legislature, their intent is for YSEP and JDEP to provide an appropriate education that is nearly the same as practical as education that is received. And next is students who are in JDEP YSEP, they can get transition services from these programs into school settings and workforce preparation programs. Yep. And there were some conversations about some of the terminology. Like for instance, an appropriate education, that is nearly the same. So the question was asked, similar to SPED students, would that mean JDEP and YSEP students, their parents and their advocates, could they file due process hearing cases if they feel the education they're receiving is not adequate, similar to like IDA SPED kids? And the response is the due process special ed process is specific to IDA, not for this. If an advocate or parent were to bring this up, it would probably be through the legal process. It won't be through the SPED due process case. Yep. So here, and then here also, the legislature is saying in school settings and for the purpose, transition services and any necessary ongoing support for transition. So it's very broad. You know, whenever you say you're going to fund any and ongoing and so forth. So this is what's happening in the JDEP YSEP road. And of course, transition is important for our, you know, or reentry is important for our LTCT students too. So these are, you know, so if it passes, some of this language might meld into, you know, LTCT, and then some people are, yeah, the language is here.
So are you saying there's a potential for this impacting the funding formula the way that it's written for LTCT, based on the fact that we would need to be able to provide credits in a variety of required areas to receive an Oregon diploma?
Julie, this bill didn't come with any funding. So the added responsibilities or the added requirements on the JDEP and YSEP, it's not coming with additional funding. They got funding for 21-23 already. So it might be, because this is, the source session is not for big bills. It's not for, you know, big money. It's just to clean up and so forth. So then the hope or wish is for 23 session, JDEP and YSEP will get some funding, you know, to meet these additional requirements. And if that's the Brian goes, what an unfunded mandate? No, that's not part of my vocabulary, Brian. I've never experienced an unfunded mandate. Yeah, so these are some of the things that are in Senate Bill 1522. And I think I emailed out the bill yesterday, so for you to take a look at and so forth. But it's good because it clarifies for JDEP and YSEP that they have the ability to you know, provide transition services, you know, so the kids can enter into school settings or workforce preparation programs.
Sam, I had a question.
Sure.
Candace from the Child Center. One of the problems, is there any wording in here for partial credit? Because one of the problems we have when kids move from one of those programs into ours, you know, mid-year or midterm, it's difficult to assess the partial credit they may have earned and get that awarded to them as they move into our program.
Okay, so that's a very good question, Candice. The thing about partial credit, we run into that quite a bit too. And then the reason why, like a high school principal say, "What is this? This kid earned point 478 credit. What is this? How do you guys come up with that?" You know, and then and we call up the JDIP or YSSI or LTC. It's because they're using like let's say there were 17 lessons or 17 units within the course, and the kid only passed 7 out of the 17, so that's how they got the percentage, so that's how they got that number and so forth. But so we run into that also. And then but generally we try to ask our sites to offer like 0.25, half, or it's not like to offer like 0.17 credit, yeah, but and it's no longer seat time. The Carnegie hours of 130 hours is no longer there. It's by credit by proficiency. Yeah. So okay, nice to see you, Melissa. Thank you. Yeah. So she just said that she had to go to another meeting. Yeah. So yeah. So but the language says they have to accept our credits. Yep. It doesn't say anything about partial credits. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? And all of you have Senate Bill. I emailed this out yesterday, and then for your thought, for your information. Yep. I'm not saying it's good or bad or whatnot. It is, yeah. Next on our agenda, any other questions before we go to next agenda item? Okay, so we're still, ODE still kind of, let's say we're not out traveling and we're still working from home. So we're definitely not doing on-site visiting monitoring for 21-22. For next, it's still up in the air, because who knows what's going to happen, right? And so forth. So keep an eye out next year for monitoring in 22-23. And ever since COVID came, I haven't got to any on-site meeting, but then I will be visiting a JDIP and LTCT site for the first time ever since COVID in February. Yeah, because and then so forth. So so on-site monitoring is undecided for 21-22, but we have to do 22-23. And if there's any agenda items, and Corinne Ross from North Bend School District for Kairos Coastline, you have an agenda item or question?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. So I know abbreviated day has been a pretty big topic this year for our district, and it made me think more about our LTCT programs and making sure that we're following the amount of day that a student should be, and when is it triggered that we do an abbreviated day form for those students in this program. And so I was just wondering, is it different for the students in this program? Is it not different?
That's a very good question, Corinne. And then this is how we have addressed it. Like the contract says that your LTCT educational program has to offer the same amount of hours as regular. But here's this. So let's just say your teacher, like teacher A, is there ready to serve from 8 to 3. That's different if the teacher is there from 8 to 11 and goes to another elementary site, whatever. But if the LTCT, like Kairos Coastline, if they need to pull the students out for treatment during that day from 8 to 3, it's not on you, it's on your mental health provider, because our OER specifically state the purpose of LTCT is to to bring treatment into the school day, and for our educational sites to work closely with the classroom. And here is on the purpose of the education program. It's right here. It's to serve the kids other than educational. You know, they're in your placement not because of education, it's there for their treatment. So as long as your teachers are scheduled to be there, like, you know, for the full day, but if your mental health provider needs to pull like students ABC for group from like 8 to 10, you know, it's just like when parents have to pull out their kids for, you know, doctor's appointments or dentist appointments, you're still offering the full amount of hours. It's just that, you know, they're
So my
not there.
staff are working the full day, like the
Yep.
normal teacher time, but students are not staying as long as the students in the rest of the building. So
Okay, that's different. That's
yeah,
different.
yeah.
They,
So that's my question,
yeah,
is
they,
if
they
their
should
day
be,
ends
yeah.
at 1:30 and the school day ends at 2:45 for all the other students in the building,
Yeah.
do we need to do an abbreviated day form, and do we need to have them there till 2:45
I would recommend
legally?
2:45. Yeah, I would recommend
And
2:45.
so anytime they are there less than a full day, we have to do an abbreviated day form.
But then it's because, like, are you guys planning? Like, are you guys planning their shortened day? Like, is it like, why are they not getting the full day as the regular peers, regular developing peers?
That I have to ask my team more information about that.
Right. So that's it. And then as I pointed out, like the legislature's intent is, you know, for our kids in our settings, they want to have the same type of education as their normally developing peers. You know, even incarcerated, sooner or later, like the possibility is, you know, LTCT, that language is, you know, to have the same comparable education as, you know, gen ed students and so forth, which makes sense, you know, but it's going to be in statute. Yeah. So
if they have mental health and stamina issues, to shorten their day, we have to go through that process of
yeah,
an abbreviated day form
yeah,
and have a step-up plan.
yeah. Because sooner or later, they're going to return to the community elementary school or middle school.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Those are good questions. Any other questions?
I'm just curious, our other programs, are they, do they go through like 3 o'clock or 2:45 or full days?
Others? And I'm going to pull up the contract.
Corinne, can you clarify your question about full days? Because I know on our end, we're compliant with full days. And if a student's on a shortened day, we always have an abbreviated day and a plan and a step-up plan to get them to that full day.
Okay.
Yeah, we typically, our goal is that the equity and the access and the aspect of they need access unless there's an extenuating circumstance where it's the student's stamina and it's medical, then of course the team always considers that, but we still meet to ensure that nothing has changed and that the team will continue reconsidering. So even if we might not make changes to an abbreviated or modified day, we still ensure that we're compliant with the IEP process of continuing to meet to see if we could ever get that student back and have access.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was a difference in hours because of the high staff student ratio. I didn't know if that had any play in it or not, or because it was a little, I have heard that in the past from other staff members that may make it to where there was some differences, but then I felt I wasn't sure. So
And Karine, yours is a little different because a lot of the other programs, education programs, are on the mental health facility. You know, so it's not that easy to make the comparison. Like, you know, like Levi Anderson is on St. Mary's, property. Like Children's Farm Home is on Trillium's property, and so forth. And like
Yeah, and
Oak
ours
Grove,
is like embedded in the school, so.
yes, yeah. So it varies. Yeah. And here, this is number 5 is part of all of your contracts. So on page 18, like how the hours are need to be met. That's the requirement, and so forth. And then the main one is here, like not the main one, but a sticky one is we're not
Can I call
supposed
you
to
right back?
we're not
Okay,
supposed to
thanks.
do half days. And the reason why we can't do half days is one biennial we got audited, and then yeah, if we have half days, we can't collect state school fund, and so forth. So yeah, so yep, these are the hour requirements within your agreement. It's on page 18. Yep.
Sam, is that no half days at all within a school month?
If there is a half day, you have to let me know, and then we
Ah.
have to approve it. Yeah, it says in writing. Yeah, I have to approve it, and when people call or email me, I haven't said yes so far.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll expect an email from me.
Yeah.
We do
Um,
first Fridays of every month. And so we don't do school on Friday normally, but we do something called a First Friday where it's half day school, and then Trillium organizes a campus-wide event. So our teachers partake kind of in that to kind of start building the relationship. So I'll shoot you an email and we can talk.
No, but Kathy, the thing about your program is, and I had that discussion with Genor before, it's because you guys do have 4-day weeks, but then you guys actually go 12 months. Your teachers are spread out to the
Right,
entire year.
right.
So because of that, you're still meeting the hour
Right.
requirements.
Okay, so I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I won't go to
Because- yeah.
LTCT jail.
No, Kathy.
Although those days might be easier than what I'm enduring right now, but
I
anyway.
know.
All right.
I've talked to a lot of you. Yeah, it's not a fun time. Yeah.
No. All right. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah. Any other questions for anybody? From anybody that you want to ask your others or so forth? Okay. Oh, it's 10:03. Sorry. I know this will happen as soon as the meeting ends. There'll be a bunch of emails or phone calls. It happens all the time. It's okay. So feel free to email me, call me, and I'm gonna stop the recording right now. Yep. Thank you.